Good morning, everyone. Renee Funk with Leadership from the Heart, together with my dear friend, Elizabeth Riley. We're coming to you in a morning edition today, right, Elizabeth?
I'm excited about this morning. Yes, good morning.
Good morning. So this is it. When we talk about leaders in the real estate industry, our guest today is the leader, CEO of the largest trade association in the United States, leading 1.4 members, Realtors. We have CEO of NAR, Bob Goldberg. Thank you for joining us today, Bob.
Good morning, everybody. I don't think it's afternoon anywhere unless somebody is over the international daylight. So I think we're good.
We're good. I don't know about your weather, but we are in a major thunderstorm here. So you might get some lightning and thunder in the background, and we'll make it real spectacular for everybody early this morning.
Good.
Well, in the interest of remaining forever agile, especially over the last 2 months, we know that we're coming to our audience, each of us from our homes. And so those things can happen, Elizabeth. I actually have some cloudy skies here in Orlando, too.
And if you hear a dog barking, I'll take ownership of that one because my dog can't figure out why I keep hanging around at the house. So
fun. I know they're all in confusion. Yeah. My kids, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. It's what we do. Well, we're excited to have you with us, Bob, and we know you have been so busy, especially with everything going on right now, and so we can't wait to really just dive in and dig a little deeper about what you and NAR are doing right now.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So let's dive in and go right to it. NAR has been absolutely focused on making sure realtors have the right tools and resources available to us during a pandemic to not only support our individual needs as realtors, but to help us serve our customers. Can you talk about some of those resources with us today?
Certainly, I think there's a couple maybe large areas to bifurcate. We are very, very active in our advocacy, which to help our members, and we can talk about that as a separate discussion. And then also real tools that members can use to help them, certainly during this chaotic and traumatic time. Back in March, it's now been 7 weeks. That my team and myself, I went to our leadership team who have been phenomenal. Talk about elected leaders not picking the favorite time to serve. It's in the middle of this pandemic. But thankfully, we have got those great leaders, the 7 leaders that have been elected on our leadership team, because they too have been moving very fast and agile. And when we went to them and said, what can we do to give back to our members in this crisis? So we created a program called Right Tools Right Now. In fact, I really ask everybody go to nar.realtor/Right Tools Right Now, or RTRN. You'll get there. And what we decided was, how do we give many of our products and our services and education programs and webinars and financial wellness programs, how do we give back to our members so that they can actually help improve themselves, use tools that if it even helps them get one transaction, it's worth it. So we gave a majority of those. We have over 340 products and services and education programs in our Right Tools Right Now program. They change daily. We add new things all the time. The beauty of that is, and I'll give you some stats, we have had already nearly 115,000 members in 6 weeks take advantage of one or more of those products and services. To date, they've taken over 300,000 products and services and education programs, so far saving themselves about $13 million in value. So if they had all paid for these things, the majority of these are for free. There are some that are at cost, but a majority are free. NAR would have collected $13 million. Our NAR affiliates have been very active. Great kudos to them, because they've stepped up and said, we've got education programs and webinars and the like. So they put those in the program. And our goal is to continually refresh, add, bring new things to the members. The most recent one that I'm extremely proud of our leadership team and the NAR's finance committee, we added a telemedicine program for our members. If you watch the the broadcast, the coronavirus updates, the Surgeon General, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Bricks, every one of them talk about the importance of, if you have access to telemedicine, use that as a first step. Because instead of running into a doctor's office, which many of us are scared to do anyway, or to the emergency room, talk to a doctor online, like we're doing here, and have a video access to it. So many of our members, we found, did not have access to it already through their doctors or through any other programs. Medicare does provide it for the most part with most of the participants. Some of our members that already have insurance programs may already have it, but we wanted to make sure every member had access to it. So we dipped into our reserves, spent a considerable amount of money, and the program that we're offering, our members and their families can sign up and get 2 months for free. Now, the sign up for that ends May the 31st. So there's less than a week left to get that advantage of the 2 free months. But the beauty also of this program that we negotiated is that members and their families can get this program even after the 2 free months for just $7 a month for their families. We don't make any money on any of this. It is a total pass-through back to our members and their families. Kids up to 26 are also covered, even if they don't live with you. My under 26 came back to live with us. So that's a whole different story for another segment about the boomerang effect of what's going on. But the beauty of the telemed program is, again, I mean, if you think about it, we've already had over 30,000 members and their families sign up for this. We get great feedback and testimonials that someone said, hey, I couldn't get in to see my doctor, but I got a telemed doctor 24/7. 2,300 physicians that are part of the program. One of the best things that we felt we could do on behalf of our members, because the thing that we care the most about is the health and welfare of our membership. And I think that is just one of the great things that our leadership, to their credit, because when you're talking about, hey, we're going to have to dip into reserves and pay for a program like this, and yet at the same time, there was no hesitation. They're like, we got to do something like this along with our Right Tools Right Now program with all these products, give something back to the membership.
It's pretty impressive, the opportunities and the tools and the resources that you provide. I mean, 1.4 million agents across the country. That's not a small group of people. And so to see the amount of resources you provide, and even here in my local community, we had our CEO, I'm in Austin, Texas, and my CEO, Emily, who is fantastic, to see that leadership and to see leadership on a local level, but not only that, but a national level step up is impressive. But to see how quickly y'all did it is what's really mind-blowing to me. And it's hard to believe it's been 9 weeks because it all kind of rolls together. But before we all got on, you were just telling us kind of how NAR stepped into this so quickly. And so can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it's so impressive what you're offering us, but again, how you saw the need almost before it happened, but the timing was impeccable.
No, yeah, and thanks, very much, Elizabeth, for the question, because, one of the things that our leadership and our staff pride ourselves on is that in this day and age of technology and all that, you have to be nimble and agile and fast. And that's one of the things that I felt was important when I was hired in as the CEO now almost 3 years ago. And we talked about we need a new way of engaging and helping our members. So in really the first week of March, when the talk of a potential pandemic was happening, you were seeing places around the world talking about it. My team, my senior team and myself had a conversation, and we decided, why don't we do a test in case the worst thing ever happened, because it will never happen. I mean, it will never happen. Then we're going to have to all work remote one day. So we took 2 days off from going into the office, but everybody had to work from home. It was a requirement. We all had to be remote, and we wanted to test the capabilities of our organization, our telephony systems, our infrastructure, the ability to handle with our call centers. So we told all of our folks at our call centers, go home. Let's see how that works when we forward off phones with our electronic systems. And we did 2 days of test. We candidly found where there were holes, and we worked immediately to start plugging those because we knew that worst case was never going to happen, but we might as well be prepared in case it ever did.
Right.
Lo and behold, 2.5 weeks later, as this thing started picking up steam and the terrible situations, and then suddenly the mayor of DC issued a stay-at-home requirement, shelter in place. The state of Illinois did the same thing. So we had no choice. We were starting to tell our employees, we'll let you have some optional remote work, because some people were starting to feel uncomfortable. They didn't want to get on transit systems. So over the next couple of weeks, it was an optional thing. Then when it was mandated, we were all forced, 350 plus employees of NAR were forced to be remote working. And we had already moved past the what happens if this doesn't work type of thing. So to give you a flavor of just how effective it is, and I am really blown away by this. We have 2 call centers that are on behalf, that we serve on behalf of our members. And we have one in Chicago and one in Omaha, Nebraska, because there's always a call center in Omaha, Nebraska. So we have people there as well. Those member support representatives, to give you an idea, today take nearly 4,500 calls a week, and they're all remote. And the systems work great. We had invested in a telephony system so that in our call centers over a year ago, we had the opportunity to have the best technologies available to us. So to think about the fact that those member support representatives are able to support our members and put them first on the agenda, that's very, very important. And I can give you all the hotline number, because if any members want to call it, it's on any of our products or services. We have a line just for COVID information, the CARES Act information that we've been instrumental in driving with Congress. And so any members can call that. That number is 1-800, and I have to read it because I apparently on one of these gave the wrong number. I started getting, my phone was texting all over for my employees that were watching. So it's 1-800-874-6500, 1-800-874-6500. That is our NAR COVID-19 hotline. And then we also have a text line to get information on what's going on with the CARES Act, anything going on with that, or what's happening in Congress that impacts you all as members. You can text COVID-19, so COVID-19 to 30644, and you'll get regular text updates as to what's going on to keep you informed about things that are happening with CARES, the pandemic unemployment assistance programs, anything like that that we're very active and engaged on. That's what those contact numbers are for.
It's very impressive to see the agility that I agree with Elizabeth, that the agility that the entire organization and leadership had during these times. 1.4 million realtors. It's very impressive. What kind of long-term adoption do you think you'll see as far as remote accessibility within NAR and the operation of NAR? And the reason I ask the question is, as realtors, I'm a team leader in Orlando. Nearly every day we're having conversations with our agents around how will we be continuing long-term adoption as it relates to how we service our customers now that the consumer has adopted technologies that will allow us to improve our service. You were so agile through that. What lessons are you learning, and what's the long-term adoption of how NAR will remain remote?
Yeah, well, we're already working on our come back to the office plan. It's not going to be very immediate, but I think this medium is going to be our new norm. It's not going to change. My hope is, yes, certainly we'll have employees back engaged, but the engagement with the members, when I came in as CEO, one of the big things I talked about is I wanted to be a different kind of CEO. I wanted my staff to be different, about serving members first. And how do we do that? Well, in a social media world, and I invite everybody, if you go to my social media, to my Facebook CEO page for me, you can connect with me, or LinkedIn connect with me. I've got tens of thousands of followers. I engage, I go out, I've been meeting with members, because it's the importance of listening to what our members have to say. Our leadership team, exact same way, engage and lead. Well, when this pandemic happened and is occurring now, we've been doing a lot of these kinds of events. And you talked about Elizabeth, Emily, who I know really well down in Austin. I think what our members are also seeing for the first time is that we'll do a lot of these events where you'll have the local association executive, the state AE, and NAR's CEO there. And with our leadership. And finally, members are saying, wow, now I get what the 3 levels of the organized real estate do for me at the local, state, national, because we're the furthest mouth in the food chain. We're three removed. And now our members are engaging with us and our states and locals together. And so to give you an idea, I mentioned it before we got on air here, we did a Leadership Live event on Facebook Live. And we had 16,000 people watching us live at the moment, but over 100,000 views the next day. Yeah. So what it means is more and more members are engaging with us. They're able to ask us the questions they feel that are important to them. And I see what's going to happen is that there will be a hybrid model on everything that we do. I can get to more places, to more of our members, and engage and listen to what they have to say. They can ask us questions. I'll give you just last week, we had our mid-year, our legislative meetings. And those are in person. We're very involved on going on the Hill to push the Realtor Party and the legislative agenda. That's important to every one of us. Typically, we'll get 8,000 people in DC. So our largest event I think we've had was 12,000 many years ago. But 8,000, we had 28,000 members register and participate. And you think about that. That's actually larger than our annual convention, which typically gets 20 to 25,000 people in person. So I think that we're going to start seeing more of these types of events where we'll engage. We meet weekly, to give you an idea, with all the state association executives. So in Florida, Renee, Margie Grant, for example, and in Texas, Travis Kessler, my peers in different states. All 50 of us and our staffs meet every single week to talk about issues that affect our members. And then you scratch your head and you say, well, why weren't we doing that before? Because it's just so easy to engage. We've had Facebook Live events with members, with local association executives and local elected leaders from NAR. And we were like, this is so easy to engage with members, and our members do want to hear and all that. So I think it's really going to be, as we go forward, it's going to emulate how our business runs with our members, with their customers and consumers, where electronic and virtual will be a key component of what we do. It won't go. I don't think anything will ever go back to what it used to be. I think that this has just accelerated what needed to happen anyway.
Well, you're speaking our language, Bob. So Elizabeth and I are part of a brokerage that runs remotely. And I will say that on the business side, one of the moments that we didn't have anxieties when we woke up in mid-March and didn't have to make a decision as to how to pivot internal operations, because we've been running that way for several years. One of the 2019 statistics from NAR was mentioned that 48% of real estate firms say their number one challenge over the next 2 years will be the rolling out of additional technologies and adoption of technologies. What are your thoughts on now with what we've experienced? Do you feel that will still be the case? Do you feel real estate firms will be more challenged or less challenged? What are your thoughts on that?
I actually think they're going to be less challenged because in order to survive and advance and move forward, this is just forcing the issue. 10 years ago, and this was one of the areas I used to run at NAR before I was promoted to CEO, is that we've been heavily involved in NAR on technology. We have a group that I created called the Strategic Business and Investment Technology area, where we are looking at what are the new technologies that we need to provide in the industry. A lot of people don't realize this. 10 years ago, we started an entity called Second Century Ventures, of which I used to run that. That is an NAR wholly owned subsidiary, that's technology company. We have a program called the Reach Accelerator, where we have many companies that we have equity investment in. So let me give you an idea. 10 years ago, we invested in a company called DocuSign, one of the first investors in that company. Well, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. We still hold shares in that company. We're very involved with DocuSign. We helped with regulators on the Hill get e-signatures to be valid in real estate transactions because it wasn't used a lot. the surprising part is we have 112 companies that we have equity investment in technology. 112. We talk these days about the importance of virtual closings for our members. Well, not only can you use DocuSign, we're actually equity investors in 2 notary companies, Notarize and Notary Cam, that are remote online notary companies. We invested in them years ago because we kept saying the world's going to change. We didn't think it was going to happen because of a pandemic, but we're finding that members, literally hundreds of thousands of members, take advantage of those many 100+ companies that we have equity investment in. And the reason we did that, and it gets to the heart of your question, Renee, which is we felt that with so many different technologies and influences in our industry, many of them want to come into the industry to disintermediate, to say we want to take the role of the realtor away. So NAR said, how do we get realtor advocates that are technology companies where we have an opportunity as an industry to influence how they work with our industry? So how do you become realtor advocates instead of realtor adversaries? So the 100+ companies that we are that we have investment in terms of in equity play, and a lot of it's not a lot of it equity. It's a chance to help influence and help those companies be successful with our members. To say organized real estate is your friend, and you can either do it with us or you're going to be outside. But we'd rather bring you in under our tent, expand our tent, get more companies involved with more of our members. And so we have members that are advisors and mentors to these 100+ companies to help them understand our industry and to help them be successful. And at the same time, if it can change our industry to be more successful, faster, more nimble. So those tools and those and others that are out there will help move our members faster. And as you mentioned, being already remote, everyone's going to have to play in that because the consumer demands it. It has nothing to do with what we want. It'll be the consumers dictating that say, we need easier access to properties. We want to do remote tours. Now we're finding, and we see members like yourselves tell story after story, that they did a total remote transaction. The person put a contract in sight unseen in the house. Mm-hmm. Now they put clauses in there that say, well, we have a chance to walk through it before we close. But sure. We used to laugh years ago, they'll never buy real estate online, unlike a car. They're going to have to touch it, feel it, smell it every second. The world's changing. And yes, you're going to still want to get into the property. But the way that's going to happen, consumers will demand it. And we want to be ahead of the consumers by our investments in these companies.
Well, I love like Renee said, you were speaking our language on the virtual platform side, right? And that was something that I didn't realize I would embrace or really need when I joined our company, because I really joined because of the people, right? So you're talking about the virtual space, but you're also now speaking my language or our language when you're talking about the consumers and the clients, basically client first, right? So we're putting our clients first. That's really our goal, treating our clients like they're our one and only. But in the same sense, you're doing the same with all 1.4 million members. You're trying to figure out what tools and technology and training is going to help us be most successful, because together we all win.
Right.
That being said, do you think, and I think you've already answered it, but I'd love to hear it directly. Do you think in the future there is ever going to be a time when the real estate agent is not a part of the process?
No, I think they will always be a part of it, because at the end of the day, no matter what technologies are out there, and look, I've been in my background before I even came to NAR, as I was in the technology business. I was in MLS, one of the early players in MLS development of products. I was on the first team that ever did an online photo back in the 80s. Technology is simply an enabler. I mean, it always has been an enabler. So real estate professionals will always be key to a transaction, because consumers need someone that is the subject matter expert on the transaction, the community, the neighborhoods, all the value proposition that realtors do bring to the table. Back in the 80s, when I first got into this industry in the early 80s, there was always talk about, well, what realtors do is they put a sign in the yard and have an open house and put your property in MLS. And the truth is, if that was the value proposition, then we were going to get replaced. So years later, I was on the founding team. NAR recruited me in the mid-90s to be on a team. I was one of the senior executives that founded Realtor.com. There was about 5 of us that were on that team. Our leadership was very much involved with, at the time we had a president, Billy Chi from Hawaii, who was a very, very strong visionary. And we all, with NAR and our staff, said, why don't we put listings on, at the time in 95, and you nice ladies are way too young. It was called the Information Superhighway. They didn't call it the internet. And we took the lead in 1995 and said, why don't we take members' listings and put it online so that consumers can see it unfettered? Because if we don't do it, someone's going to do it and charge consumers and to get access to properties. Why don't we just put it out there? And I will tell you, it was heresy in 1995 to turn around and say, we're going to take all your stuff from MLS and put it online so everybody can see it. We would have members that said, well, you're killing our value proposition because we're the only ones that are supposed to know that. Well, thank goodness that Realtor.com started this, because if you look at all the players that are out there with the portals, whether you love them or hate them, because we see every attitude out there, the reality is, look at every other information portal that's out there, automobiles, jobs, they all charge per listing to be up. The reason no one charges to put your listing up is because Realtor.com, an NAR influence site that we started, has been free for members to put your basic listing up. Now, if you want to buy add-on products and services, and whether you'd like to do that or not, that's a different issue for different discussion. But the fact is, with Realtor.com being free for our members to put your listings up, starting in 1995, even today, that's why Zillow is free. That's why Trulia is free, because we set the market as a baseline. And so other verticals, and like we said, you go to furniture.com, you got to pay to put furniture listings up. So it was a free model, or what we call a freemium, because if you want to buy add-on products. But the fact that we decided to do that early on was that we felt it was important that we had to advance the industry. And I think that we still have to continue to do that. And because there's been discussion about, well, what are the influences of all these new models that are out there? Are they going to replace iBuyer? Is that going to replace the industry? Well, interestingly, the test for iBuyer, which by the way is not even, I think it's around 5% of the entire industry. There's always new models in this industry. And I am reminded by veterans like yourselves that have been in this industry for a long time that, some of the major franchises 30 years ago were saying, if I can't sell it, I'll buy it. So the idea of iBuyer is like, well, yes, there are different people behind the capital on this, but this industry has always been used to different players, different models. And yet we continue to drive the industry forward because consumers still want to talk to somebody, in most cases, about understanding the elements of the property and the community itself.
The most important thing we can do is continue to give the information to the consumer and then be the expert to help support them through that process. It's been a focus, the way Elizabeth and I have both run our business and many successful realtors, is to not fear the technology. The technology is a tool. It's not the relationship. The technology is a tool. Let's fill our tool chest with as many technological tools as we can, is the way we like to think of it. So we're grateful for NAR for sharing that same mindset and making sure we have access to all of that.
Renee, you said a key word about, not being fearful of it. The first speech I gave when I became CEO was the importance of being fearless, not fearful. And we shouldn't have to feel fearful because we have the tools, we have the arrows in our quiver to say, look, we can do more for consumers. And I think that's why still the majority, by far the majority, 90+% of all real estate transactions work with one of our members. That tells you that is still an important facet of a real estate transaction.
Okay, so on the topic of real estate listings online, let's dive in. We'd like to hear your thoughts around clear cooperation. We have an audience of both realtors and our consumer audience. Some may or may not know what clear cooperation is bringing to our industry, but Elizabeth and I would love to hear you kind of dive in and give us your thoughts around that more recent policy.
Yeah, so the policy as it stands basically says that if you're going to actively market a property, within 24 hours, it's got to be put in the MLS. Now, the driver on that, and I always love when I get in this question, because people are like, why did NAR do this? Well, let's remember who NAR is. NAR is all of us. The members made this decision. NAR, the CEO doesn't sit in a room and go, I think we're going to create a policy called clear cooperation. Our leadership team doesn't make that policy. This actually started by members in committees that said, we think we need to have this. Now, why? Well, what was occurring is that there were players in the industry, and I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing what they were doing. They were just taking advantage of what they felt they wanted to do, was that they were doing keeping the listing out of MLS and marketing the property. We felt with our members, and the members drove this, that the fairest thing to do for a consumer, this is the most consumer-friendly thing you could ever do, is say to somebody, look, the consumer wants their property marketed to as many people as possible. That's why MLS was created, for easy cooperation in selling and buying a property. So this way, by saying that, okay, if you're going to market it, put it into the MLS so everyone has access to it instead of a limited audience. That gives the seller an opportunity to get the most, not only exposure, but if it ended up in situations where there's a bid on a property, the most people have the opportunity to see it. It benefits the seller as well as the buyer having access to properties. And so it was just a way to make sure that it's pro-consumer, everything that the realtors are doing. And the deadline, I think, was May 1st to get everybody up and running. And I think mostly across the country, we've seen that that's fully complied with and full agreement that made sense when you look at it from the consumer's perspective.
One of the challenges that we've had, and I think this may address it too, is Texas is a non-disclosure state. Right. And so with that, you don't have to disclose the property or the sales price or any of the data or information. We had major appraisal issues because of that. And we still do. We have major appraisal challenges. And so you can see both sides. I can see it from a real estate standpoint. I can see it from the consumer standpoint, and being devil's advocate, it does affect and negatively can impact values of the other properties in and around the area because that data is not known or available. And so there was a lot of due diligence, a lot of digging, a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears on everybody's parts, trying to make sure that the clients aren't in a negative equity situation or aren't being taken advantage of. So I know there's a lot of discussion around that, at least in my market, whether or not they like the policy or they don't. I think there's a case for both.
I would argue that clear cooperation, by the way, there's arguments on all sides. Yeah. I would argue that today with a pandemic where a seller who is still trying to get as many eyeballs as possible to see a property, this fits exactly with what needs to happen because of the impact on real estate. And a seller certainly wants to be able to expose their property to as many eyeballs as possible and not face a situation that, because the consumer many times doesn't understand what the concept of MLS really means. If a broker walks in and says, hey, I can sell your property and never even put it in the MLS, that may sound enticing unless you find that you have a hot property and 5 people bid on it. But if it was an MLS, you'd have had 20 people bidding on it. And so, look, at the end of the day, we're all about what can we do to make sure that consumers see that real estate is competitive. It provides the most opportunity for most people. And that's really why the members drove the importance of this clear cooperation policy.
Well, we know we effect, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in the next 30, 60, 90 days, along with the industry as a whole, not just that policy.
Yeah.
We fully support the clear cooperation policy. One of the areas that felt as though it was a bit of a speed bump, though, with it was, my opinion is that realtors often don't fully embrace being marketers in the field of real estate. in order to be a marketer, that doesn't mean you just put a property on the MLS. There's obviously additional steps that go into the preparation and to the true marketing of the sale of that property. In our local board in Orlando, we have an option, and we do have a way that we can extend that out. So when we sign a listing agreement, it doesn't, we have ways we can allow more padding. But the challenge we found initially was within 24 hours, that gives a realtor no time to prepare, right? No time to really actually do a phenomenal job on the marketing side. Do you ever see a time where maybe there would be more padding from the time that a listing agreement is signed to the time that it needs to go on the market to give the realtor time to properly market and prepare?
Well, I think the key is always the devil's in the details. As soon as you get a listing agreement, if you're starting to market it, then you have 24 hours to put it in. But that doesn't mean that you have to start marketing it at that moment. That means you can create your plan and what you need to do before you actually execute it.
Good reminders for sure.
By the way, that's not my dog. So.
That was mine. I was like, and he's supposed to be like way on the other side of the house. So the fact that you can hear him is crazy. Okay, so lots of changes going on, lots of businesses, industries being impacted. What do you think, if any, do you think COVID's going to have long-term? What impact on the real estate market?
Well, I think as we talked a little bit about it, I think there's going to continually be the added pressure of making it easier and more convenient for consumers. Now you're seeing, I know firsthand because my daughter's house is up here in the Washington, D.C. area. And, they were telling us they were doing a showing, and the realtor's actually in there on FaceTime with the buyer who is not even in the state. And they're taking him room to room to room. Now, did that happen before? I'm sure that happened in some cases, but everything was done virtual. And they said that they were going to handle the entire transaction virtually, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that what COVID's going to do is, like we said earlier, it will push the issue of advancing virtual capabilities to make it easier for consumers. You'll see more of these kinds of events, virtual open houses. Now, by the way, early leaders and early adopters of technology were doing that way before COVID. That's not a new idea. It's just now that it's requiring everybody to play. And so you see an increase of these brokers saying, hey, we're going to have to play post-pandemic. And there will be a post-pandemic. And I don't think it's going to be, well, let's go back to the way it used to be. I think it's going to be a far more efficient process. And so I think the tools and the technologies and the advancements that the industry is going to continue to make will continue to be there. The fact that our members are independent contractors for the most part, that our brokers compete against each other, there will always be the new innovators and the new ideas to take advantage of a post-pandemic situation with even more tools. And I saw not too long ago, right before this, I was looking at a lab that Realtor.com has. They're part of a company called Real Estate Australia, and Real Estate Australia (REA) has a percentage ownership along with News Corp and Realtor.com. And when several of us went to look at REA's headquarters, they had this phenomenal virtual technology. Now, that's not a new idea, virtual technology, but they actually have done things where you can go room by room, et cetera, from where you are, and even advanced technologies that I just saw not too long ago. Even have a mask where you can smell the kitchen, you can smell the house, and it's not fake stuff. So I think you're going to see things where we say, wow, that's really no one's going to want to do that. I think people will absolutely want to do that in the future to narrow down and to make it more efficient so that our members will be showing what the consumers really want in an easier, faster. And, in the past we used to say, well, that will never happen. Well, we didn't think any of this would be what we would be doing either. And I think that will be the new norm.
Never say never, right?
Right. Yeah.
Bob, what advice would you give to the real estate leaders of tomorrow?
I would say always plan for the unexpected, because that's what life is. Number one, don't get set in your ways. Two, I think you need to be a passionate leader and an empathetic leader. if nothing else, what this pandemic has shown us is how our members and our employees at NAR and what we see all around the country, and it's not unique just to us in this industry, the fear and terror of worrying about your family and what does that mean and how does that impact me and how do we put food on our table, and realizing that the worst can happen. Typically you think economic slowdown and you say, wow, well, that's going to take time, like in the 2008, 2009 timeframe. That was a gradual slowdown of the economy that had severe impacts. This was one where we were going 150 miles an hour as an industry, and it basically went to zero. And as we're starting to come out of it in terms of businesses starting to try to get back to some normalcy with lots of modifications, leaders, I think, need to just say, look, you have to move quick. You have to be open to new ideas. Trying something is not a bad thing. Be open, but be empathetic to what people are going through and look at it from their perspective and not just your own.
Those are really great reminders. I love that you pointed out leadership with empathy. Elizabeth and I have spoken to, we're very honored to have spoken to a lot of great leaders on this show over the last 70 days. And one of the most common mentioned feelings is to remain in grace and empathy, right? And I think that even with realtor to realtor communications, and as you're navigating through transactions, there's nothing more important than understanding that not only are the realtors working through their own situations that they're dealing with in their homes, but our buyers and sellers are navigating things as well. So empathy and extending grace really couldn't be more important now more than ever.
Absolutely.
Okay,
well,
Bob.
We have to say, and I speak on behalf of Renee, that we are just so grateful that I know you are pulled in a million different directions, especially right now, and with such an organization that you run. But we are so grateful that you took time with us, but also your leadership, right? And as the industry, and we're involved in this, and to see our leadership, like I said, locally and on a national level step up, it makes our jobs easier, and it makes us realize that we don't have to worry about all the, I don't want to say little stuff, but the little stuff. I mean, it's almost overwhelming with the amount of resources that we have. So you don't even know, Renee talks about her tool belt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
you don't even know which tools you want, but it's fun that you get to know it. It makes the most sense. So one question though, so we appreciate your leadership and we appreciate all you're doing for our community. One question that Renee and I always ask our leaders that come on with us is, what does leadership from the heart mean to you?
I think that it's very easy for me to say this. Leadership from the heart is you have to check ego at the door. There can't be ego for effective leaders, even pre, during, and post-pandemic. Great leaders, I think there's an overused term. There's no I in team, but you have to have a team of people. It's especially in our industry where you have leaders of our associations all the way down to state and local. They're all partners here. It's not NAR at the top, and then there's the state of Texas, and then there's Austin. We're all in this together equally, but equally and probably more important, I would say, is the fact that when you have staff, executive staff and employees of an organization, the partnership with the leaders that are elected. So in the case, I know this has been true with me since I've been CEO. It's a term that's used, the staff volunteer partnership, but it won't work unless volunteers and the staff say, we have one goal together, which is to help better the lives and the success of our members. That's why we exist. And it's not who's doing it, it's what we're all doing this together, because at the end of the day, the 1.4 million members that we talk about, it's your association. It's not my association as the CEO of NAR. We're here to serve our members. And when I came in as CEO, I felt it was important. We put 5 core values that I felt every employee had to live by to be employed by NAR. And the first one is members first. The second one is leading change, communications, respect, collaboration, but members first. If we lose sight of that ball, that everything we do is about our members and my volunteer leaders, from the president, Vince Malta and our team, and Charlie Oppler coming up next year. We've got a great leadership team in every meeting that we have. And by the way, we meet like every week now, which I've seen my board far more than I used to. But everything that we do as leaders, the first question is how does this help and benefit our members? Because if it doesn't, let's quit wasting our time on that and move to what is important. I think that's the greatest thing that we've learned when you talk about leadership from the heart. It is caring, it is being empathetic, but you can't just give words. Actions have to speak more than words. And so I can give you all the great management philosophies in the world. That doesn't mean diddly unless we execute and show you that we all care and that we're in this for the benefit of everyone that's listening today.
We have one more hot seat question for you, Bob. This is a big one. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So what are you most Realtor proud of?
What am I most Realtor proud of? I tell you what amazes me is that the vigilance and the passion that our members have for the business. It takes a special kind of, I've been in the corporate world my entire career. From the time I graduated college, got in with big companies. I was with the largest MLS vendor in the United States that was owned by Black & Decker, a Fortune 20 company. So I've always had experiences as a corporate person. And then certainly as I got involved with NAR, still serving our members. But for the thing that makes me most proud of when I watch our members is that you don't get paid. I said this the first day that I was CEO when I was at our leadership summit in 2017, is that every one of you as practitioners wake up unemployed every day. You are unemployed until your next deal. That's a certain kind of person that can live and function professionally in that kind of environment. And so it makes me realize, and I put this program in place as we finalize here. I created a program called the Day in the Life of a Realtor program. Every employee of NAR must go through it. They must spend a day with a member out in the field to learn what you do, how you do it, why you do it. Because if our employees are empathetic to what you all do as practitioners, they will serve you better. Because our employees, like many corporate employees or organizations, get a paycheck every 2 weeks. You all wake up unemployed, and yet you push forward. That's what makes me proud to serve you all, because like I said, I want you all to know that you have a staff. They're required as a condition of employment. And the first person that did this program was the CEO. I've been in the industry 35 years, and I went out and spent a day. Even though my wife is a practitioner, she is now inactive while I'm CEO. But I could tell you I know the business inside out. But the answer is no, you don't, until you live in the footsteps of what you all do every single day. That's what makes me most proud, because to serve people like you all is really an honor and a privilege.
I'm picturing you going undercover like the prophet, right?
If you go to NAR.Realtor, there's a video of me going through my first day in the life program before any of our employees. And it's actually humorous. We showed it to our board of directors as a scene where I got stuck and my shoes fell off in the mud and blah, blah, blah. And the agent that I was with, Bonnie Roberts out of DC, great realtor. I didn't even know her before. And she looked at me as my foot is stuck in the mud, soaking wet in the rain, and she says, "Welcome to my life." And
I think I'll go back to CEO.
Go back to NAR.Realtor and check out the video of me as the CEO doing a day in the life of Realtor program. And we still run that every single year, and it's a condition of our employment for every one of our employees.
How fun is that?
Yeah, I have to say, so I don't think I knew I was going to learn as much in this hour about the resources and the day-to-day operations of NAR. I really am surprised and so impressed by the level of service that you all are providing for us. I have new enlightenment and certainly new appreciation for the way you are serving us in ways I hadn't even imagined. If anyone who's watching has learned something, love for you to drop a comment in and share what you've learned, because Bob, just thank you. Thank you for all that you are all doing for us.
Well, I appreciate that. We do have great resources for our members. And one other thing too, if you want to follow me on my CEO page or my LinkedIn page, I have gotten almost 50,000 direct emails and texts, and I answer every one of those personally. Every one. People keep thinking I have a ghostwriter. How do you do all those? Well, before the pandemic, when I was always on planes going places, I'd be using Wi-Fi and sending 20, 30, 40 responses a day. But I am very, for those of you that are in fact following me or have ever sent me a question, I hope you will all be able to say, that I respond to everybody. I used to say I will respond within 24 hours. Then, of course, I asked for what I got, which was so many that I said, okay, well, I'll get to you within 2 or 3 days. But I always do respond. I don't have a ghostwriter. I'm extremely accessible. By the way, so is our leadership of NAR. And that's a big change for NAR too. Not that they didn't want to. We have so many tools that every one of our 7 leadership team members, and you'll see them on NAR.Realtor, are so caring and accessible. We want to listen to what our members say. And I always end all my conversations with, there's a reason that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And that is, we should listen more than we're talking. And just know that we are here to help support in any way we can.
Well, we appreciate your leadership. And I will attest to the fact that you respond, because I got an email from you and I was like, oh my goodness, I was expecting an assistant or somebody else to respond back. And so, just like Renee said, we've learned so much in this hour about NAR and the tools and resources. But more than that, we've learned so much about you and your leadership, and we're in good hands. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been my honor and privilege. Thank you.
We appreciate you. And I have to say this too, on the technology side, you're talking to 2 very technologically advanced realtors, a part of a very tech forward thinking brokerage. Thank you for making sure that NAR stays focused there. And thank you for really being so forward thinking on the virtual remote accessibility, because it will change the future and give efficiencies in the way that we serve each other in our business.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Bye, Bob. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.